Well, it's my pleasure to talk to you about, or give you an overview of the Waite Arboretum, its establishment, its purposes, its evolving collection policies, its value and its role into the future. In 1914, Peter Waite, wealthy businessman and pastoralist, gave to the University of Adelaide his estate, including his residence and 54 hectares of grazing land at Urbray, to further the cause of research and education in agriculture and related disciplines. It remains one of the most generous benefactions in the history of the state. The deed of gift specified that the eastern half of the estate be used for the purposes of teaching and study in fields including botany, horticulture and forestry, and that the western half of the estate be held upon trust and in perpetuity as a park or garden for the enjoyment of the public. Waite understood the importance of science, and he noted that the climate, rainfall and soil at Urbray was typical of large areas of what Bob Hill called this morning the arable fringe. Therefore, the results of research done on that site had wide applicability from an arboricultural and agricultural point of view. So in 1922, when the university came into possession of the estate, it was decided that the park should be more than just a park, but take the form of a scientific collection. Planting began in 1928. The Arboretum occupies 28 hectares and now comprises over 2,400 specimens representing 1,000 taxa for around the world. The Arboretum has four main roles. Primarily, it's the evaluation of species to assess their suitability for the our climate. Testing of trees takes many decades, so that is why it's important that the Arboretum is protected by the deed of gift. The Arboretum is also a valuable resource for research and a repository of material generated from research at the Waite. It's used for teaching in fields such as plant taxonomy, soil science and entomology, and it informs a better species selection of climate-compatible species for our urban forest. The Arboretum is also important for ex situ conservation of rare and endangered species. The International Union for the Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, developed and maintains a red list of endangered species. 180 of the Arboretum specimens, representing 70 taxa, have IUCN status of near threatened or above, and 2 of these are critically endangered, including the 2 Pyrus species, Pyrus hodgkinsonica and Korshinskii. And propagating material from these rare and uncommon species in the Arboretum is shared with botanic gardens, other botanic gardens. And finally, in keeping with Peter Waite's initial vision, the Waite Arboretum is a tranquil green space open daily, dawn till dusk, for the enjoyment of the public. The importance of nature play in childhood development and access to green space for the mental and physical health of all ages has been well documented by many scientific studies and is increasingly understood by the community. I very actively promote the Arboretum to families and schools so that more people and their more children and their parents know about the Arboretum, value it, and will protect its future into the future. In the initial phase of the development of the Arboretum, was the collection policy was really undirected by the systematic botanists who had responsibility for its oversight. The 1956 appointment of David Simon as a systematic botanist initiated a second phase of the development of the Arboretum as a botanically focused collection. Simon expanded the collection with uncommon species, mainly grown from seed collected in the wild and obtained from overseas correspondence. In 1960, Simon instituted the far-reaching policy of not watering the trees after establishment. Thus, the Arboretum demonstrates the performance of species for up to 55 years without any supplementary summer watering. And this information is becoming increasingly important with our climate change. With the decision not to water species after establishment, the collecting policy focused then on homoclimes. First of all, the Canary Islands. This specimen of dragonblood tree, Dracaena draco, which is listed on the National Trust list of significant trees, is the icon of the iconic species of the Arboretum and epitomises the success in Adelaide of species from the Canary Islands. Simon was captivated by the arborescent Dracaenas and assembled 30 specimens representing 7 taxa, some of them or many of them on the red list and grown from wild collected seeds. Other Canary Island species performing well include Canary Island pine, Canary oak and mastic tree. Adelaide has a Mediterranean climate, cool wet winters and hot dry summers. A fine example of a species from this region is the Cork Oak, Quercus suber, and I believe it deserves to be much more widely planted in South Australia as a wine state. And the Kermes oak is from the eastern Mediterranean and is also called the Gallipoli oak. It's Quercus caliprinus, Quercus coccifera subspecies caliprinus. And acorns have been given from this tree were sent to the Victorian Education Department for children to plant in schoolyards for the 2015 centenary of Gallipoli. We've also provided a lot of acorns for the growing truffle industry in New South Wales. So provision of material from the Arboretum for a variety of industry and research purposes, including phytochemical studies and taxonomic studies, is another role of the Arboretum. California is another homoclime, and this really splendid blue oak, Quercus douglasii, is an example of that, and there are many other Californian oaks and Californian species which deserve to be planted here. And South Africa are represented with the Cape chestnut, Calodendron capense, and other species include tree fuchsia, Schottia brachypedala, which produces a very spectacular floral display. Pindustia australis, the crow's ass, is a very valuable timber tree in wet rainforest and an emergent species in dry rainforest. In Adelaide, it's very suitable, I believe, for parks and wide verges. Simon lamented the difficulty of getting species that are performing really well in the Waite Arboretum out into our streets and our gardens. Nurseries are very reluctant to put a lot of time and effort into tree growing for when there's no demand, no guaranteed demand. And on the other hand, it's very hard to generate a market if there is no material available. The challenge of this was met in 1997 when nurseryman David Laurie proposed to form a cluster group of people with a common interest in street trees. This included local and state governments, researchers, arborists, tree growers, landscape architects and so on. Together, Laurie and I founded TreeNet, which is based at the Waite Arboretum. And a major activity of TreeNet is the dissemination of recent research and ideas in its annual National Street Tree Symposium in Adelaide. Proceedings of all of those 16 symposia are available on the web and searchable. TreeNet marks the third phase of the development of the Arboretum as a working collection. TreeNet collaborates with councils to trial species that are in the Arboretum that of good performance, proven performance, And TreeNet also works with state governments and the arboricultural and nursery industries to improve tree selection, production and management, and with engineers and scientists to improve harvesting stormwater at the curb for the benefit of trees. And in recent years, I've also been trialling a lot of new cultivars, including the new eucalypt cultivars developed by Kate Delaporte at the Waite. And I think it's really important that our urban forests have a wide diversity of species, so we should be looking to the Arboretum for species of merit. Proper documentation and labelling of trees adds enormous value to any botanical collection. And from the beginning, the Arboretum records were kept on every specimen, labelled data, source of material, and for some species, flowering and fruiting data. In 1986, I created the first electronic database of every specimen, which was searchable, and in 1990, with Douglas Gardner, produced what was using then the cutting-edge CAD technology, the first comprehensive computer-generated map that could be annually updated. In 2014, I collaborated with Marion McTury to produce the first digital map of the Arboretum using the ArcGIS software. This spatial data was then joined with the tree catalogue. The merged data set was then suitable in a format to develop an app. So why develop an app for the Arboretum? First of all, as every botanic garden knows, labelling, keeping up the labelling is a very costly and challenging activity as names change and labels become engulfed in the canopies. The app makes the label data of every specimen in the Arboretum available at the tap of a finger. It's also a useful tool for management and enables researchers, arborists, landscape architects and so on to locate easily trees of specific interest. The app enhances the experience of the visitor, allowing them to get extra information about each specimen and other features. And using current technology connects and appeals to children who are all very adept at using tablets and smartphones for learning and play, thus fostering a connection to the Arboretum of the next generation, which I hope will be its custodians. Collaborating with the app developer, Carlos Carvalho, of the appropriately named Oak systems, we worked through various designs and functionalities like near me, search, themed walks, bookmarking favourites and so on. And in February last year, 2015, we launched the Waite Arboretum app. The current version is a standalone on the device, but within a week or so, this will be transitioned to web-based. So this will enable a lot more easy addition of extra content, continuous updating and adding such fields as carbon sequestration and pollution amelioration. Peter Waite understood the value of science and enthusiastically embraced new technology. I think he would be delighted with his vision of a park for the enjoyment of the public has resulted in a remarkable scientific collection, the Waite Arboretum, and that collection can be explored and its information accessed with a tap on the screen of a tiny device that fits in the pocket. In conclusion, I believe the Arboretum is an invaluable resource to better inform about species selection in our changing climate. It's an asset for teaching and research, and it's tranquil green space for improving the well-being of the community by fostering a love of nature. Those of us who value the Arboretum for its experimental, educational, conservation and environmental values must remain vigilant to ensure that the visionary bequest of Peter Waite is honoured into the future. And I conclude with an acknowledgement of the support of the Arboretum by friends of the Arboretum, community groups, volunteers and donors. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.